Okay, we're doing a very short ed puzzle on nationalism around the world. Latin America. So, in the early 20th century, the Latin American economy, really, it should say Latin American economies because it's different countries. Latin America isn't just one place. But they were based largely on the export, second typewriter, on exporting. All right, food and raw materials. So they were a very agricultural based economy, but also, for example, iron, steel, gold, things like that, where you can export that to other places to make things. The United States at this time invested directly in the production facilities and ran the companies themselves. So the United States, either through the government or through U.S. companies, were investing heavily in these companies that are exporting food, exporting raw materials. And so the United States, even though it's not like a colony, right, these aren't colonies of the United States, is very, very powerful in this area. So beginning in the 1920s, right after World War I, we start to see that many Latin Americans resented this. Why are we having America, basically, we had all of these revolutions that we had studied with Bolivar and San Martin, getting, these were some of the first countries to basically throw off their colonial overlords, right? And so now they're looking around in the 1920s and 1930s and saying, well, the United States is basically doing the same thing. Even though they don't run our government, they have so much power and control over our government and the things that we produce that it's basically the same thing. So this sparks this kind of new nationalist movement where Latin American nationalists were able to show that the profits from U.S. businesses were used to keep dictators in power, because the dictators ended up making the environment better for U.S. businesses. And so during the Great Depression, there was less demand for exports, right? Like coffee, sugar, metals, and meat. So you can imagine in the United States, we are not drinking as much coffee because everyone's unemployed. We don't need as much sugar. We're not making as many cakes because people aren't going to the bakery to buy cakes. We're not selling a bunch of cars during this time or building a lot of houses because people are unemployed. So these industries, basically, that were supplied by Latin America, and they had their own economies that were based off of this, right? That they took a gigantic hit during this time. Now, on the flip side, new industries were developed to produce more manufactured goods, but they were largely run by the state. And you can say that as the government. They were largely run by the state. And that doesn't mean the United States, that means the countries, because they were too expensive for an individual to start. So, in effect, there are these big, like, coal industries, or, mines, or manufacturing, or steel industries, and they ended up being run by the state. They were owned by the state. While many Latin American countries were democracies on paper, in reality, leaders generally came from the elite class. And we talk about this during the gallery walk, like elite landowners, various different elite individuals, and used the military. You see that common theme, use the military to stay in power. Okay. What we want to understand, and that's this line right here, economic instability helped to keep these leaders in power. So when you have a situation where the country is economically unstable, where it is difficult to find a place to eat, it's difficult to find food to eat, it's difficult to find a job, it is easier for a dictator to come in and take power and say, I can fix this, or to take the military and come in and rule the country. Our big point, and I purposely excluded the details of each one of these individual countries. I'm not testing it, and I don't think that I think that understanding the major trends is what's mostly important. What we need to get as a result, the what? Oh yes, the nationalist movements indirectly led to dictators taking control. So they are trying to kind of get the United States out, but what ends up happening is the people that fill that vacuum of power end up basically being military, homegrown, but homegrown military dictators and military leaders. That's what we got to know about Latin America. Ba-dum-bum.